Sunset falling on the news so slow, where the train went home and the stories flow. From Tryon Palace to the streets we roam. Yeah, this place ain't just a town, it's home. Yeah. This is a golden hour, where the light hits right, where New Bern shines in that coastal light. Every voice, every story, every dream out loud. Yeah, we're lifting up this city proud. This is a golden hour. Well, it ain't golden. Yeah. Sunset falling on the news so slow, where the tram winds home and the stories flow. From Tryon Palace to the streets we roam. Yeah, this place ain't just a town, it's home. Yeah, this is a golden hour. Ooh, I am. Ooh, I am. Ooh, I am. This is the golden hour. Yeah.
Hey everybody, happy Wednesday and welcome back to the Golden Hour. We missed last week due to unforeseen circumstances, but super excited to be back with you guys today and super excited for our guest. But as usual, I'm going to highlight a couple of my properties that I want to get in front of you guys. If you know anybody looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, keep me in mind. My first one is 109 Colonel Burgwin Drive. This is a townhouse located in Taberna. It is absolutely stunning. This is one of those that it's kind of off the beaten path. You didn't really know it was there, but it is so spacious. It's 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath. It has a open concept living, dining, kitchen area with also a loft area for, extra. You can do an extra living room. You can have it for your kids, your grandkids, but it does have a first floor primary as well. In addition, still have 443 Peregrine Ridge. This one will officially be completely done this week. It's a new construction, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths with a bonus room. It is located in Falcon Bridge. It's adorable. This is one that you definitely have to see. It's just a precious place. I think I'm actually going to be able to get it staged this week as well, which will help tremendously. So I am humbled and excited to introduce today my guest, Senator Bob Brinson. Hey, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm so excited that you have agreed to be with us today and share
Absolutely.
um, basically your story. That's what I really want to hear. And then also some information on the government as a whole and what a senator actually does. We hear senator or representative or governor, like whatever. And I don't think people really, that's pretty sad to say as an American, know what it is. So,
Yeah, it's a, ooh, there's a title, but what does that mean?
yes, exactly. It's like, oh, and then like even the fact that you are part of the local community, that I feel like people who are voted into office often seem like they're in some far off area, but you live right here with us. So, anywho, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Bob Brinson outside of politics?
Well, actually, I grew up here in New Bern in the Bryces Creek area, and went to all of our schools. Brinson, HJ, JT Barber at the time was the uh, junior high school, and then what's Grover C. Field now was the high school, senior high when I went through, and ended up going to West Point out of New Bern High, and then did a career in the military, and met my wife through the military, and we've been married 34 years now. And when it came time to get out, I had brought her and the family here a couple of times, and we decided when I got back out to come back home because what we found was no matter what place I lived around the world, even or around the United States, it seemed like there was no place like home, and so we ended up back here. And once I got back here, got involved in local politics, and here I am.
Well, that's crazy. Where did you start in politics? When was your first endeavor?
Well, I retired out of the military in 2019, and came back to New Bern. I actually got involved in local political party, doing some positions there, and ended up as a local party chair at the time. But the I knew early on that party politics was not really where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in elected politics, in public service, and so it seemed like it was the campaign that never ended. I ran for alderman for city of New Bern, but because of and that was supposed to be in 2019. Actually, that was supposed to be 2021. That's where there we go.
Mhm.
But because the census was delayed by COVID,
Mm,
and it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, the census numbers had to come out so that the city of New Bern could redistrict the wards within the city of New Bern. And so, since that was delayed, they had to delay the election. And so, the election was going to be March of 22, and then there were issues with the redistricting at the state level. And so the state Supreme Court pushed the primary from March to May. And so essentially it started out almost a year campaign.
mm,
And I ran for New Bern Alderman for Ward 6, which is West New Bern,
mhm.
Greenbrier, Bell Oaks, Craven Forest. That's encompasses uh, Ward 6. And then so I was on the New Bern board for about 2 years before the state Senate seat opened up.
Mm.
The incumbent had decided not to run for reelection, and I basically was recruited, and that's kind of where I talk about preparation meeting opportunity. I had, like I said early on, I guess, to tell a little bit about my story. While I was at JT Barber ninth grade government class, Mr. Lee was teaching us about public service and public servants, even though we don't call them that anymore. You know, they're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to serve the people. And that was when I kind of got a bit of a political bug and was very interested in politics. Ended up with a political science degree out of West Point. Got a master's of public administration while I was in the military. And so when I came back home, that was kind of my thought process was I still want to serve. This is what I consider my second service. And when I first got back here to New Bern, I started serving in the VFW, in the American Legion, and I was on the Veterans Council of Craven County. So really starting to get into serving the community um, in that sense, even before I started getting into local politics. So.
Okay. You made a comment before. You said you wanted to not be like there's party versus elected. What's the difference in that? What does that mean?
Okay, so our two main parties, but the Democrats and the Republicans,
Hmm.
they actually have a local party organization, and it kind of starts at the precinct level. If you think about it, you know, where do I go and vote on election day? Like
Hmm.
I vote in West New Bern.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the name of my precinct. Well, when you look at it from a county perspective and a precinct perspective, you can have party structure at that level. And what that is you'll have a precinct chair, you'll have a county party chair. And the way it's always been explained to me is the purpose of your party. Number one is to vet candidates. You know, are they in keeping with the party platform? Then you help get them elected, you know, because whether we like it or not, you know, most elected, at least at the county and above level, are either Republican or Democrat. So you work to get them elected. And then the third thing is you keep them accountable. You keep them accountable to those party principles. And so there is a party structure in order to facilitate all three of those functions. Um, and it is not part of the county commissioners or the state legislature or, you know, the governor. That is a whole different elected system. And so that's kind of back of the envelope. You know, you hear about conventions, you hear about Republican convention, Democrat convention. You know, those are all within the party system
Hmm.
of how politics operates. I won't say government because that is the party is strictly politics.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So I think a lot of people hear, state senator, but like we were just
Yeah,
talking about, doesn't know exactly what that means. So let's start in that little
yeah.
realm. So,
Start there.
what is the North Carolina Senate?
Okay. So, you know, most of us have had the federal government portion where you have a bicameral body of both the House and the Senate. Well, the North Carolina General Assembly is what we call it. It's the same thing. You have a Senate and you have a House chamber. The Senate has 50 senators. Our districts are about 210,000 people each, which that's based on the 2020 census.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, as a real estate agent, North Carolina is growing like crazy. We were the number one state last year for the number of in migration people, meaning the 84,000 people last year moved from another state to North Carolina. So
Wow.
we're growing like crazy. So in 2030, that number is expected to go up because we're not going to expand the number of senators. And so therefore you have to expand the number of constituents you have. So 50 state senators, about 210,000 people. what we try hard to do when we redraw districts is keep counties together. And
Okay.
so my district, the 210,000 people that I have, are in Lenoir, Craven, and Beaufort counties. Those are the uh, counties that I represent. So Kinston, New Bern, and Washington, if you're fairly new. Most people know the cities, they don't necessarily know the counties. Um, and to talk about the House for a second, there's 120 members of the House,
Oh wow.
and their districts are about 90,000.
Hmm.
And so for my three counties, I have counterparts with four different House members. So primarily here, Craven County, it's Steve Tyson. He represents the northern, say, 90% of the county. Celeste Cairns represents the southern part of the county, along with her residents in Carteret. Um, Chris Humphrey from Lenoir County. He has that, and I think he has two, maybe, yeah, I think he's got two other counties that he represents. And then Keith Kidwell in Beaufort County, he actually has three other counties that he represents. And so that's kind of how we work together to get either projects or laws passed that are good for our areas. And so anytime it has to do with one of those counties, I work with my counterpart over in the House to get laws passed or local bills passed, those sorts of things.
So what is the difference in the state Senate and the U.S. Senate?
So great question, because my email inbox fills up a lot of times with federal issues,
Uh-huh.
because what you hear is contact your senator and your congressman.
Hmm. Yeah.
Congressmen, they can figure out because, at state level, they're called representatives.
Hmm.
Uh, at Congress level, they're congressmen. But senator, contact your senator. So I tend to get contacted by a lot of folks that don't understand. And so what I tell them is, you have two senators, U.S. senators, that work for you in D.C., and that's currently Ted Budd and Tom Tillis.
Okay.
I am a state senator, and so I work for you and I represent you in Raleigh. And so usually when I tell the difference between DC and Raleigh, most people, okay, I get it now.
Hmm.
And that's the difference between the two of them.
Okay. So what does the state senator do on a daily basis?
Great question. Because
It's a hard
it's
question.
a
I know.
little well, it's a little complicated to explain. So, but let me put it to you this way. Um, our General Assembly is a part-time legislature.
Okay.
One of the big things that people get shocked by, because they compare us to DC, like I said before, um, those senators and congressmen make about $180,000 a year. Theirs is basically a full-time job.
Mm.
They go to DC essentially year round. They'll take a couple weeks off or a month off. At the General Assembly, I make $13,954 a year.
Really?
That's it. And so, so people say, "Oh, you're doing this to get rich," and no, I actually lose money trying to do this
I was gonna
job.
say that is not a lot of
So,
money at all.
that's so I say that really not to complain about the salary, but to tell you that it is intended to be a part-time job.
Hmm.
It, however, is a full-time job.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Um, so what ends up happening is, like last year, well, let me start with this. North Carolina has a 2-year budget cycle. So last year we were supposed to pass a budget. That's a different story, but last year we should have passed a budget that encompassed 2 years worth of time. So last year we started about mid-January, and we go to beginning of July. That is what's called our long session. This year, because we're really supposed to only come in, make adjustments to the budget, whether revenues there were more than we previously thought, or things are costing more than they should have or that we planned for, those types of budget adjustments. This is what's called the short session. And so we go from April until about beginning of July. And so that's kind of the short session. That's really when we're only supposed to be in Raleigh, actually passing bills and hearing bills. We generally follow that schedule. And just to let you know, my general time frame, unlike the folks that work in DC, they move up there, they spend so much time up there. Our work week, I drive up on Monday afternoons, and we have sessions all day Tuesday and committee meetings all day Wednesday and a half a day Thursday. And so I come home Thursday afternoons. So that's kind of what my week looks like in Raleigh. But I meet with constituents. I do tours of businesses, of state facilities, essentially Monday, Thursday afternoon, and Friday, and sometimes Saturday. And so that's kind of what my schedule looks like when I'm in session. A day is in session is actually pretty tough too. We have advocacy breakfasts started at about 7:30. Basically, a group will come in. They want to educate us on a particular issue that they're working on. The one that comes to my mind is the wildlife bridges. There's a group that comes in and wants to talk about putting wildlife bridges over major highways so that it reduces. It's a wildlife crossing. It reduces the interaction between cars and animals, and therefore it lowers your insurance rate. I mean, it's kind of one of those strange economic things of how things work.
Yeah.
And
Trying to figure out how that would even work. Like how do like never mind.
it's an overpass that is full of dirt and plants so that the deer and the bear and everything else
Go over.
takes the overpass over,
But how do you
rather
get them
than
to do that?
they will figure that out. They will figure it out rather than, trying to jump over the median,
Mm-hmm.
or the concrete barriers and go across the roads. So that's anyway, but that was an example of an advocacy group
Yeah,
that
well,
we
I've
had.
never even heard of it. So I was like, wait, what? An overpass for the animals in lieu of like people. So I don't know. I have not heard of it. So that's very interesting.
Well, when you live in the mountains, that is very important.
Uh-huh.
We don't have many of those. In fact, I don't know of any of those in Eastern North Carolina, but
Like I said,
but
I've never heard
otherwise,
of it.
how do they get from forest to forest rather than go through the road? And so
Yeah.
it's the intent is to, one, increase safety for both the animals and the people driving, but
Mhm.
it's also backed by the insurance companies, because then there are less accidents and there are less payouts. So,
Okay.
it can lower your rates. So
Okay.
that's that's the whole point of an advocacy breakfast. How's that?
Yeah.
You just
Yeah, that
learned
works.
something today.
Perfect example.
Um, so basically 7:30, those are 7:30 to 8:30. Committee meetings start at 8:30. Our session normally started at about either 3 or 4 o'clock. And then there were advocacy dinners after that. And so essentially, I would start my day at 7:30 with a breakfast. I'd end with a dinner at about 9:30. Getting back to, I stay with my dad when I'm up there. He lives in Apex. I'd get back about 9:30, and then I'd start reading the bills that I'm supposed to take a look at or vote on in the committees or in session the next day. So it is a
Ah,
very intense couple of days, 2.5 days when we're up in Raleigh. Um, and so that kind of gives you an idea
yeah.
of what it is I do. And I do the same thing basically when I'm in district. Like this morning, I was in Lenoir County. Lenoir County Sheriff's Office did a groundbreaking because they want to put an annex down in the southern part of Lenoir County in Deep Run so that they can get better response times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Last Friday, I was down at Minnesota Beach and, at the ferry, trying to learn some of the issues that are going on with the different ferries. Met
Mm-hmm.
with the ferry division. There were some DOT folks, and then this Friday, I'm actually going up to Mans Harbor, which is the DOT shipyard where they do all the maintenance for the ferries. And
Okay.
so, really, it's an exchange. I'm going to places to try and learn how things are being run by the state, and then there are also people that are trying to tell me what the issues are so that I can work on those problems and make them easier. Now, I've talked about state facilities, I've talked about
Mm-hmm.
businesses, but constituents too. There are constituents that contact me because part of my job is to help people navigate the state bureauccy
What's a
and the
constituent? Can
problems
you give
that
us
they have.
like a definition of what a
Well,
constituent is?
like you, Lene, are one of my constituents.
Just
So
making sure for everybody.
yeah, so it's basically anybody that lives in the district
Okay.
in Craven, Lenoir, or Beaufort County.
Mm-hmm.
One of the successful example I had was a um, state employee, Beaufort County, retired, but it was kind of at the end of COVID, and there were some glitches going on with the HR and the payroll system. And so basically, she had about 400 hours of comp time that got wiped out,
Oh.
gone. And she had been working on this issue herself, into COVID. So 2021, so about 4 years before she ended up contacting me
Mm-hmm.
and saying, hey, the state owes me this comp time as part of my retirement. And basically they're saying, nope, sorry, you're out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
So she contacts my office, and of course I go to her original agency that she was in, but also the Department of Administration, because the Department of Administration does all of the HR policy for the entire state employee system.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took us several months to go through that, but they came back and about 2 weeks ago and said, yes, we made a mistake, and we're going to give you all of that money for that. It basically, at the rate she was paid, it was about $15,000.
A lot.
And so those are the types of things that you hired me to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just make laws, but it's help you navigate the issues that go on with you at the state government. One of the other things that I spent a whole lot of time doing last year was trying to get people into DMV to get their licenses renewed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, while we were having those problems. Now, we did a lot of things at the state level by, giving them more money to hire more employees. They opened about 3 new state DMV offices. We extended some licenses so people didn't have to go in as often. That policy where if you had a permit, and you probably know this better than I do, if your teenager had a permit and you wanted to go and get the full license and you had to go in with that big laundry list of hours of driving, we eliminated the requirement that you had to go back in with a DMV appointment to get that updated license. You don't have to do that anymore. It turns out that was 90,000 appointments across the state per year.
I believe it. I just
So
quit
so
getting
anyway, so
appointments.
that's two different levels.
Yeah.
While I was helping individual people to navigate the local DMVs in order to get appointments to get their licenses, we were also working at the state level to try and make it easier overall for DMV to start doing their job better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a long-winded answer of what a state senator does, but
No, that's good because those are things that matter to people, honestly. Like
Right.
things that we dread is going to the DMV. Like I did have one get their license last year, and we couldn't even get an appointment. Like when you
Right.
sign on, there is no appointments. So I was like, well, we'll
Right.
just show up somewhere and hope for the best. Well,
Right.
then that's also a cluster. So,
Right. Right.
but
Yeah.
we were able to, like, we walked in, and Moorhead actually is where we ended up going, and there
Good.
was
Yeah.
nobody at
Yeah.
that point. It was like right after
Yeah.
lunch kind of thing. But
Yeah.
that makes sense. So tell us real quick, quick, I mean, however long you want to go, but how are laws actually made in North Carolina?
Another great question. I'll give you the simple answer of how a bill becomes a law. If you
Yeah.
go back to the old uh, cartoon,
Mm,
it essentially is about the same as the federal system. Um, Now, because we are a part-time legislature, we only have periods of time that we can file new bills. That's really the only limitation. We can file bills at the beginning of session in the long session, and we can file new bills, but not statewide bills, in the short session. So I introduced some terms that I probably didn't need to start with. So anyway, introducing a bill. Yeah, let me go back to the basics. So I'll give you an example of a bill that I ended up filing and the governor signed at the beginning of July. So my first official law.
mm-hmm.
So I went and put together a bill that was the Farmland and Military Protection Act.
Okay.
Basically, I wanted to not allow our foreign adversaries to be able to buy up farmland in the state of North Carolina or within 50 any land within 50 miles of our military bases.
Mm-hmm.
That was the idea that I had going in, that's the bill I want to do. So I ended up uh, drawing from many other states and putting together a bill, going to our bill drafters and saying, here's what I want. Let's put it together. So I got that bill drafted, got it submitted, ended up going through two different committees. You essentially present it to the committee. The idea there is they try to make the bill better,
Mm-hmm.
or is it a good idea at all? Is this
Mm-hmm.
something that we just need to throw back on the scrap heap? So made some changes, got it through the committees last year. It actually passed the Senate unanimously,
Oh.
and then we sent it over to the House. Now, what's interesting is after it got passed was when some of the lobbyists started coming and some of the advocacy groups started coming and say, hey, do you realize that this is what your bill does? And I'll give you an example, you being a real estate agent again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I had included individuals in that, so I had prohibited not just corporations, not just companies, not just parties, political parties from other countries, but I had prohibited individuals as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, you realize that no Chinese students can go to any of our universities anymore in Raleigh because they can't rent an apartment. It
Oh.
was kind of like, oh, no, I didn't realize
Mm,
that.
yeah.
And so that's where, people give lobbyists a bad name, but really what lobbyists do, 90% of them are great. They educate you on what the bills you're looking at, how they affect their clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, and there were advocacy groups too from, Asian advocacy groups that said, hey, they were the ones that brought up and said, hey, you realize that you can have no Chinese, and not just Chinese, no Taiwanese
Mm-hmm.
students, because your 50 miles had included a base that encompasses Raleigh. And so
Mm,
they can't even rent apartments to go to school there. It's like,
mm-hmm.
well, that was an unintended consequence. Didn't really mean to do that.
Right.
Um, so the bill went to the House. We worked on it some more. It went through the House committees. Now this year. That's how long it took
Mm-hmm.
to kind of work through some of the issues, not just on who it applied to, but also how you enforce it. Like there were some things where uh, the bill mandated an affidavit to be signed by the buyer saying that they were not a foreign entity. And then that would be recorded as part of the closing package
Mm-hmm.
at the Register of Deeds. So I had a lot of real estate attorneys and Register of Deeds saying, "Hey, is this what you really meant? Is this, are they going to charge me another fee for this? Are they going to, can we actually register that?" So the implementation of it also was a point of concern that I had to work through. Um, and so while it was over in the house, we kept making modifications to it to the point where all was satisfied. The North Carolina Realtors were happy, the Register of Deeds were happy, the Bar Association was happy, and it passed the House. But because it wasn't the same bill, the same version that passed the Senate, it had to come back to the Senate for concurrence.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we say, okay, the House made, because I was a part of the changes that were going on in the House, when it came back to the Senate, I basically said, hey, this is the modifications of my bill. It's a great bill. Let's pass it. And so we passed it this year. It went on to the governor.
Mm-hmm.
The governor does have veto authority. It's actually been a relatively recent thing. I say recent, it's been the last 35 years that he had veto authority. So it goes to the governor for either signature or veto. He decided to sign it. And so it became law in July.
Mm-hmm.
So you, as real estate agents, should start seeing
I
a
did.
map, yeah,
Yeah.
of what those circles are around the military bases. You should be getting probably some education on the definition of agricultural land
Mm.
and the procedures now for that affidavit and how to file it and all of that. So you can blame me for that.
That's so interesting. We definitely need an education on that, I think, for sure. Because I've noticed, like on the register or on if I go on the GIS or something, it has a new message on certain properties. Especially with agricultural, which there's always been one for being within a certain vicinity of agriculture. But I had a closing in July that had something attached that my client had asked about, and it was about being a foreign
Okay.
entity. And this particular person was like, "I'm not foreign. Why would they ask me this question? I'm not foreign, this and that." And I was like, "I've never seen this before, so I'm not sure what it is."
Yep.
And it was from an attorney kind of thing. So that might be exactly what it was. And they're like, "Oh, it's simple. You just say no. Like, it's not." But I was like,
That's
that's
exactly what it was.
I had this is my highlight of the show right now, because now I can go back to my client, like, go watch that, because it was not the first time they've sold or bought or done anything in real estate, but never
Yeah.
seen this document before.
Right.
And I had not either. So I was like, I actually don't know what this document is. This is new, but that's fantastic to actually understand,
Yeah, I
what we're
didn't I
looking
didn't
at.
realize that was already implemented.
It was in
Because
July, so, I mean,
yeah,
right after that, I guess, and, I mean, I'm assuming that's what it was.
uh,
It could have been anything else, but, I mean, it was
it's
on that
probably
time.
what it was.
Mhm,
And because basically we asked the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs to get with your real estate commission to
mhm,
draw the maps so that you knew where the 50-mile rings were.
mhm.
And I think we gave them until either, I think it's April.
I haven't seen a
Uh,
map yet. That
yeah,
part we
yeah,
haven't
that's what I'm
seen.
saying. We gave them until April of next year to come up with that.
How interesting. How cool. Well, I learned even more than I expected today. Um, so what would you say are some of the things that people probably don't realize are decided at a state level instead of the federal?
Um, thinking about that question, I really think the only thing really the feds don't have in their uh, now constitutionally that's a whole different question. They shouldn't have a whole lot of say what goes on at the state level, but because they have the purse strings, there's usually whenever they give the states money, there are strings that come along with it.
Mm,
I would say that probably the biggest thing are roads and highways, our transportation system. While we do have a Department of Transportation up at the state level, they're really focused on uh, international ports and airports and interstates.
mhm,
Everything else is in the state. And I did want to bring up something like that too.
mhm.
Uh, Having been on the New Bern board, what a lot of folks around here don't know is the county owns no roads. County has nothing to do with roads.
Okay.
So your county government doesn't have anything to do with roads. All of the state roads are, of course, maintained by the state. But I do want to say that all of the roads in the city are not all city roads. And I'll give you a perfect example, Simmons Street.
Yes.
Simmons Street is a state road.
Mhm,
It's not, and Trent Road used to be a city road, or used to be a state road, but about 10 years ago they gave it over to the city. So it changes on occasion.
mhm,
But yes, Simmons Street, you can complain all you want to at the city of New Bern, but the city of New Bern doesn't maintain it. So,
mm.
but I was happy to have ridden on it yesterday. It finally got repaved.
Yes.
But that's kind of what you have to pay attention to. If it has a number on it, 55, 43, 70, 17, those are all state roads.
Okay.
And so that's why Noose Boulevard and MLK, those are state roads because those are numbered roads. And 17 business, 70 business, all of those. Um, and transportation is an issue for the state.
Mhm.
Um, Most people don't know we have the second most highest. We have the second highest number of state roads in the nation behind Texas.
Wow.
So, and that's where most people don't realize how big North Carolina is. Most folks will drive north to south, and they're in and out in like
Too
4 hours.
wide.
We're wide. Um, just to give you an example, so my daughter went to Western Carolina University,
Mhm.
and she did it on the inexpensive end. She bought a little travel trailer, and so in the summers and the Christmases, we parked it in our backyard. But Dad was the moving company that took it back to campus on move in and move out days to an RV park in little old Cullowhee, North Carolina, and that was about a 10-hour drive
Mhm.
uh, with a
And you're not
trailer.
at the
And
end yet.
you're not at either end yet.
Nice.
so so to describe North Carolina, it's just I love North Carolina because there's the mountains and there's the beach
Mhm.
and people. You're a true North Carolinian when you can't decide what to do on the weekend. Do we go to the mountains or we go to the beach?
Mhm. Yeah, when we lived east of Beaufort on Harker's Island, me and Aaron, I had lived here maybe 5, 6 years, and I was heading to work, and I called my mom, and I was like, North Carolina is just so unique. I can't. When it's going over Harker's Island Bridge, and there was a dead shark on the side of the road where somebody like caught it and like left it, and on the other side was a dead deer. I was like, where can you go? Within a mile of each other, you have a deer and a shark on the side of the road.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
crazy to me.
yeah.
So, what would you say are some of the biggest issues facing Eastern North Carolinians today?
It's and here's it's frustrating
Mm-hmm.
because it's the very same problem we had when I was growing up.
Okay.
The problem is we don't we're getting there, but we don't have the jobs in the industry and the businesses to keep people here.
Mm.
We, as you know, the retiree population is not as big as I thought it was, and I don't think it's as big as most people think it is. But with our kids graduating,
Mm-hmm.
what's keeping them here? What's the upward mobility? I often complain that if you weren't a a lawyer, a doctor, a real estate agent, or a financial planner, there's really not much here.
Mm.
But we're working on that. So the biggest challenge I would say is
Mm.
infrastructure and jobs,
Yep.
which is industry, and it's all related. I'll give you an example. So when we talk about infrastructure, I'm not just talking about roads, because when you bring in, when an industry looks at an area, they want to be within a mile of a 4-lane highway
Mm-hmm.
and a interstate if they really want their druthers. And so we don't have a whole lot of interstates in Eastern North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
There are more. We're getting there. But I also want to talk about water and sewer,
Mm-hmm.
and increasingly power.
Affordable power would be nice.
Well, let me come back to power, but I'll give you an example. Like in Vanceboro, um, there was a developer that wanted to put like 250, 300 homes in a development just outside of Vanceboro, but Vanceboro's like, we're at capacity for sewer.
Mm.
We can't help you, municipal from the municipality. You're going to have to provide your own sewer. Well, that becomes too much money for that development, so the development never happened.
Mm-hmm.
While I was on the city of New Bern, there are still some places in the city of New Bern where the water pipes are terracotta.
Mm.
I mean, so they are incredibly expensive to replace.
Yeah.
And so, and then there are these municipalities like, take Vance River, they don't have the tax base to invest 10, $20 million to expand their system.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need help from the state in order to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only so much money to go around. So number one, your development, and affordable housing is based on the infrastructure that you have, both water, sewer, and like I said, with power. Um, to talk about power a little bit, Duke does have plans to expand their generation, but even though there's three parts to your power system. There's generation, which is your power plants,
Mm-hmm.
whether they be gas or whether they be nuclear or whether they be solar for that matter. And then you have transmission lines. You got to get it from that generating plant to a neighborhood. And those are the high power, the really tall transmission lines that you have. And then there's distribution lines, which is what you have in and around your neighborhoods, whether they be underground or overhead. And that's a mix of different companies, not to get too in the weeds with that. But in order for us to expand, we talked about at the very beginning how fast North Carolina was growing.
Mm-hmm.
We are also growing for industries. Now, they aren't necessarily, there are some coming to Eastern North Carolina. Many of the businesses we have in North Carolina Eastern North Carolina, are expanding rather than
Mm-hmm.
being new. But in the Piedmont, they are getting new advanced manufacturing, which takes up a whole lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so Duke is actually looking at uh, new nuclear plants, starting out initially in South Carolina and then a couple in North Carolina. So they've got to build their generation, and that takes 10 years for a nuclear plant at least. And even if they were going to build a natural gas plant, that's going to take 5 to 7 years because the lead time on the generators to generate that power from the steam from the gas. So it takes a while.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, they still have to maintain the plants and the lines that they have.
Mhm.
And I don't know if being on the New Bern board, while I was there, we had our own electric utility for
Mhm.
the city of New Bern. A lot of folks know that. Um, but the cost of a transformer, the one, from the one sitting in your yard that services about five different people, those went up, I want to say 200% during COVID. And it's because of all the shutdowns, all the plant
Mhm.
shutdowns, and then all of a sudden you can't find them anywhere.
Mhm.
And they went from a 2-year lead time. Like if I bought one, I can't say today because it's actually come down, but several years ago, if you were to buy one, it was actually a 2-year lead time before you saw it. And so because it was that scarce, the prices were going up. And
Mhm.
so they have to, as a electric utility in a municipality, they have to stay solvent, and so they have to pass that cost on to the ratepayers
Mhm.
uh, in order to do that. Otherwise, what happens is if they start losing money, then the state takes over and the state raises your rates anyway.
Mhm.
So, you might as well do it right to begin with. And I don't think a lot of people understand that when it comes to municipal based utilities.
Mhm.
City of New Bern does water, sewer, and electric. Um, Trying to think some of the others in the area, but that's it. And so the other thing, so like I talked about, going back to your original question of what are the challenges facing Eastern North Carolina, uh, population, maintaining our infrastructure and trying to stay business friendly so that you've got industries and jobs coming here,
Mhm.
which we are doing with FRC East. Many of your listeners will probably know FRC East is expanding in Cherry Point. They're expanding at Global Transport Kinston. We're talking they're already starting to hire, I believe, up to 1,000 jobs over the next couple of years, and those are good, skill labor jobs. So,
Mhm.
we're talking 50, 60, $70,000,
That's awesome.
and so that is good. And so, as part of that, I'm pretty proud that as a freshman, I got asked to lead the National Security, Technology, and Innovation Caucus, which is a bicameral um, caucus focused on dual use and military um, industry and trying to bring more of those to the state of North Carolina, because we are number 4 in the number of service members that we have stationed here, but we were number 30 as far as Department of Defense contracts, Department of War money coming into the state, which doesn't make sense until you think about, well, the service members that are here are at the pointy end of the spear. They're the ones that get the 911 call and end up deploying
Mhm.
out of Fort Bragg or out of Camp Lejeune or out of Cherry Point. So they're on the receiving end of all of the procurement that goes on rather than being part of the actual procurement itself. And so this caucus will actually focus statewide on trying to bring more defense industry, defense dollars into the state, not just for automotive, but also for maritime. I mean, as you know, we've got plenty of boat builders out here
Mhm.
on the East Coast that would love to be able to participate in some of those. And drone technology, both when right now people think of drones, they think of the aerial drones, but there are maritime drones now too. So um, that's another thing that we're focused on. I'm trying to get them to come to Eastern North Carolina
Mhm.
as part.
That would be awesome. Um, I had a question and it's just left me. Well, we kind of, if anybody has any questions for him, we have a few more minutes left. So please post them below because I don't want to miss that opportunity if anybody in particular wants to ask something. But you said that, that people contact you a lot and are actually contacting the wrong senator. So what kind of issues should what do you call it? I can't say it right.
Constituent.
Constituents. There we go. I know this word. Um, what kind of issues should they come to you with? And do you want them to? Like, do you want to hear from these people?
Yeah, I do want to hear from them. And you really should contact me with just about anything.
Mhm.
The reason is, if it's not at the state level, then I'll refer you to the county or the city, or to the federal offices. I will not ignore you. I will get you in the right place if you haven't, if my office is not the right place.
Mhm.
But there are all kinds of things. I mean, if there are issues that are going on at the state level, you're hearing about bills that we're talking about. Yeah, call me with your opinion, or send me an email. Let me know what you think about it. And then there are also others that, hey, the state needs to do this. Maybe you need to file a bill or create a law for this, that, or the other. Then
Mhm.
give me those ideas too, because even though you've elected me, I'm readily admit I'm not the smartest knife in the drawer, and sharpest knife in the drawer, and I don't know everything. So it's one of those that if you don't contact me and you don't let me know, then I don't know, most
Right.
likely.
Right.
And the best way, let's see, I had a card up here. I mean, the best way to contact me is through email. It's
Mhm.
bob.brinson, Brinson, at ncleg.gov. That it's pretty simple and pretty easy to
Yeah.
remember. And so bob.brinson at ncleg.gov.
Got it. Um, so last question, real quick. Um, I'm going to quote, I wrote it down, so I'm going to like read it. But people hear a lot about politics on the news, but many don't understand government itself, which is what we've been talking about. So if you had 5 minutes to explain why state government matters to someone who's never paid attention, what would you tell them?
What I would say is, unfortunately, state government probably touches everything about you. And I say unfortunately because I'm a limited government guy. Government shouldn't impede upon you at all, but unfortunately, it does.
Mhm.
Um, from all of, like, speed limits on the highway to, whether or not you've got uh, potholes or roads that are not being maintained, to even the building codes when you're building homes,
Mhm.
to even, uh, a lot of this is at the county level when we talk about permits and we talk about inspections, but they're using state guidelines to do those.
Mhm.
We talked about DMV. We talked about, your state income tax. I mean, we set the rates.
Mhm.
As far as your General Assembly does, we just lowered them to 3.49, down from about 7.5, 15 years ago. So
Mhm.
we've effectively cut them in half. Um, all the way from, like I said, how much money we take from you
Mhm.
and what we spend it on. How much do we spend on education, which is a whole nother ball of wax. What I really, the, since I opened that can of worms, the local school board gets three pots of money. They get one from the state, which
Mhm.
essentially is for the teachers and the administrators. We basically pay the payroll.
Mhm.
The federal will pay for different programs, whether it be disabilities, whether it be food, whether it be reduced lunches, and then the local county essentially pays for the infrastructure. They pay for the buildings, they pay for the gym, and so when people contact me and say, "Hey, how can you spend money on this when they need a new gym?" It's like, well, that's the county, that's not
Mhm.
us. So it's one of those that is very convoluted, and I wish we could make it simpler. And there are some up there that do want to make that simpler, because when it becomes convoluted, it becomes opaque, and when it becomes opaque, it's not transparent in how the decisions are being made and how the money's being spent. Um, but that's a big area. I want to say it's about 63% of the state budget is spent on education.
Oh,
That's
wow.
not just K through 12. That includes our university system and it includes our pre-K system.
Hmm.
But that's the majority of the budget is education. The rest of it is healthcare, is a huge chunk,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to maintain our healthcare systems. I mean, that's another issue for rural Eastern North Carolina, and we are working on that to try and expand rural healthcare. You can just look up Williamston and Martin County reopening that hospital, and then looking at expanding the Beaufort County Hospital. Those are two things that we put in this past budget.
Mm.
And then the rest of it is kind of everything else that the state does.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to answer your question, why is state government important? It's because it touches just about everything you do
Mm-hmm.
within the state, whether you realize it or not. And and like I said, unfortunately, because government shouldn't be in your business, but it is. It is.
Right. Right.
And but one of the things that keeps me up at night is our family farms too. I did want to bring that up. They're being pressured by developments, turning over their land to new houses. Yes, we need new houses, but it's kind of like we need to do that intelligently. But also, they're getting overcome by commercial farms.
Mm.
And with the weather, the last 3 years, a lot of them are struggling. And so I tell you that keeps me up at night, trying to figure out how to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, most of their assistance, I'd say probably 95% of their assistance comes from the federal level. There's not a whole lot that the state can do. Uh, but if you got ideas, let me know, because
Yeah.
that's
That was my
something.
question too. If somebody does have an idea, is that something that's frowned upon, or like you
No,
like to have
no,
the conversation?
exactly. I mean, like I said, if people
Mm.
don't tell me that there's a problem, then
Mm-hmm.
I most likely won't know. I don't walk in your shoes every day, and I don't see where you are. So I don't claim to know what your issues are.
Mm.
You've got to tell me, and
Yeah.
very willing to listen and act upon what I can act upon.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time. Is there anything you'd like to add before we sign off? I'm so grateful for you for joining us today.
Yeah, I think I said my spiel there, trying to get people to contact me with issues, trying to get people to contact me with problems they're having with state government, and helping them. Uh, I will tell you this, the other misconception folks have is like, hey, have somebody from your staff contact me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's me and my legislative assistant. That's it. That's my staff.
Not a big staff.
And I call her my legislative assistant because she's not a secretary. Although she handles my calendar, she is the one that actually works most of the constituent issues
Mm-hmm.
through the state agencies, and trying to get answers and trying to get resolution. And so it's the two of us. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you send us an email or leave us a phone call, and that's it. I hope that people understand that I'm approachable and that I will listen. And when I say listen, I don't mean it in the Southern mama sense of,
I
you
hear
know,
you.
if you better obey me kind of thing, you better listen. It's more of, I want to hear your perspective. I may disagree with it, but I want to hear it,
Right.
and I want to try and understand it. And so that's what makes us a better society and a better North Carolina.
Yeah, for sure. I love that so much. Well, thank you so much again. I'm going to put his email in the comments below. So if anybody needs to contact you, they'll be able to do that. So, but thank you so much for your service, and always, from the military to serving us in this capacity. Um, I've always had respect, but knowing how much you work and how much you are not compensated by such work. I'm glad you like that was actually going to be one of my questions was do you have to get a hotel room every time? So glad your dad lives that direction.
Yeah,
But it really
yeah,
does put everything in perspective, the sacrifice that you and Amy both have to make for us
yeah,
every week. I mean, that's something that
yeah,
nobody, I think, realizes how much time and energy and lack of resources that you are compensated
yeah.
with. So
No,
thank you for
no, I
that.
don't want to leave people with the impression. They do when I'm up in Raleigh, they do give us a per diem.
Okay, good.
But I think it's about $120 a day,
Mhm.
so it still doesn't pay for a hotel.
No, barely
But it
food.
does but it does take the edge off. So, so
Good.
that's a little bit of per diem in addition to the salary I talked
Hmm.
about. But yeah, it was one of our freshman orientation, both majority leaders in the House and the Senate in two different briefings said you're going to lose $5,000 to $10,000 a year trying to do this job. And mine is less because I'm living with my dad, but
Yeah.
that's most folks either stay in a hotel or they actually rent an apartment,
Hmm.
which is kind of unfortunate because it goes unused when they're not there. But
Hmm.
it's cheaper
Cheaper.
than trying to do a hotel. But
Yeah,
anyway,
sure.
but thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I will see you soon. And
All right.
thanks to everybody who has been a part of this with me. Have a great day. And if you know anybody who wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you know how to get up with me. Thanks.
Sunset falling on the news so slow. Where the train went home and the stories flow. From Tryon Palace to the streets we roam. Yeah, this place ain't just a town, it's home. Yeah, this